gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Fenway Park.
Welcome to Monster Territory, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by Fox One. We got a special guest here today, Lance Brozdowski of the Marquee Sport Network out of Chicago. Lance, my friend, how you doing?
What's up, Robbie? Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing great. How about you?
We're doing good, man. I mean, like you, sad ending here. Your Cubbies, falling short. My Red Sox falling short. So we're just waiting to see what happens here. We got basically a best out of three now between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Who's going to pull this out, man? Are we going to get the Dodgers repeat, or are we going to get that first World Series since 1993 for the Blue Jays? What are you thinking?
I'm still leaning towards the Dodgers. I always want things to go 7 when I don't have a horse in the race, though. So Game 7s are the best thing in sports. So it's an easy call to just push it to 7. I was pretty stunned the Blue Jays won Game 4. I just thought the 18-inning deflation would really carry over to the next day, but it hasn't.
Especially with Ohtani on the mound. I'm thinking, what the heck? I mean, listen, PTSD for me. I mean, the 18-inning game, and we had that in 2018 with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. As that game was going on, I'm thinking, it's going to go 18 innings, isn't it? That's just how the baseball gods are just doing this. They're just, of course we won the World Series.
Did you stay up on the East Coast?
Say that again?
Did you stay up all the way on the East Coast?
I did not make it all the way through, unfortunately. I stayed up. I think I tapped out probably between the 15th, between the bottom and the top of the 15th inning. So
I'm Central Time, but I fell asleep on the couch in the 15th, and I woke up and I was like, "Oh, the game's over."
2018 for me. When I'm not kidding. I did. How many times? About 3 times. I think I dozed off, and I woke up every time, like in a sweat, thinking what happened, and the game was still on. And unfortunately, of course, I woke up when Max Muncy hit the walk-off homer. So anyway,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what happens here. But listen, who cares about the World Series? We got some Red Sox to talk about here. We're going to talk some pitching in this episode, and let the viewers at home know, what are you all about, and tell them where they can find you. You got great stuff. I've been a big fan of your stuff for a while now, but let the viewers at home know, where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks a ton. No, I work for the Chicago Cubs Regional Sports Network, similar to like Nesson in Boston. I'm like an on-air talent. I also help with some producing and stuff on our pre- and post-game shows. And then I have a lot of stuff on my own, just personal brand stuff. I have a Substack that's basically goes out every day during the season, recapping kind of what I'm seeing on the pitching side. It's kind of like a brain dump. It's probably one of the nerdier things I do. So that's definitely for like the deep cut people who really enjoy my content. And then the more accessible stuff is definitely just on YouTube. I try to do some higher level breakdowns, stuff going on, league trends I really enjoy looking at. So trying to put my content and voice out there in a variety of ways across the internet webs.
Oh, it's fantastic. I tried as much as I can to get more into the advanced analytics, metrics, but my potato brain can only go so far. That's why we need people like you out there.
You do a good job. Come on.
I'm just trying to be humble over here, okay? But no, you really get into more of the advanced stuff, more of the mechanical stuff, where I touch on, the stats and whatnot. You do too, but you really get into all the arm angles and the release points. I love it. It's great stuff. But everyone listening, please go follow Lance on YouTube. But let's get into it here. Let's talk some Sox. We got to talk some Sox here. Looking at the Red Sox, both the starting pitching and the relief pitching, there were a lot of good things this past year. And I want to point this out because we had a conversation last year, and I'm sure you've noticed this as well. The one thing you noticed back in 2024 was the fastball usage with the Red Sox. Yeah. Dead last, 37.1%. But we saw a big increase this year, all the way up to 48.6%. That was 14th in the major leagues, and a big reason for that was Garrett Crochet. I got to ask your thoughts on Crochet from this past year.
I thought he was fantastic. Yeah, I had a bold prediction earlier in the year that he would basically win like the Triple Crown for pitching in the Cy Young, etc. Unfortunately, Tarek Skubal is an incredibly good pitcher. Yeah. But you hit on a point that I think is a great thing to identify about the Red Sox as a whole from a pitching standpoint. I think the rebound in four-seam usage in particular, because Crochet actually dropped his four-seam usage relative to when he was a White Sox. So despite the fact he was throwing a lot of four-seamers and boosted up the Red Sox four-seam usage as a whole, relative to what he was doing at the White Sox, they did cut back a bit, threw more of that short cutter, sweeper, et cetera, played around with some of his mix, started throwing a lot more sinker, et cetera. But I think this is a larger trend to highlight for the Red Sox. Like if you look between 2023 and 2024, when they brought some new brass in, et cetera, there was a pretty big year-over-year flip in the minor league specifically in terms of how many four-seamers they threw. It was the largest cut. They went from like probably mid 40% down to like mid 30%. Yeah. And now what I think we're seeing is like when you now have the new thinkers in here, new ideas, they're starting to identify the kinds of four-seam fastballs that they want to throw, such that you're going to naturally see a little bit of like the kick up. But what happens sometimes when more of these progressive minds come into organizations is like, why were you throwing this? You shouldn't be throwing this. If we're trying to find success, you're going to throw other things. I think this may happen in like the Washington Nationals, relevant to this Red Sox stuff. But like we see this time and time again. We saw it with the Marlins. We're seeing it about the Red Sox. And I think you saw it through their draft philosophy in 25 too, taking some of the arms like Kyson Witherspoon and Marcus Phillips that they took. They're just IDing the kinds of four-seam fastballs they want to throw. And perhaps a lot of the time that's pushing them maybe back into like cutter usage. I know they've been top 3 in cutter usage in baseball in each of the last 3 seasons. So there's some fun like machinations of how they're getting to the results they're getting to that is unique from some other teams in baseball.
You know, it seems very, sounds very technical when you get into, you know, the fastball usage, different types of cuts, run, and whatnot. But it's almost, at the same time, it almost feels like the Red Sox are keeping it as simple as possible. They're going, if you just brought up the draft, right? They're taking a lot of these big-bodied pitchers, right? Peyton Tolley was one example we saw this year. You know, Kyson Witherspoon is a little on the thicker side. Marcus Phillips as well. Ianson, right? Big-bodied guys. But you know, with the Red Sox, it seems like you're kind of just getting an idea of where they're going with the pitching. Unfortunately, behind Crochet, there definitely, I think, could be some room for improvement, right? Lucas Giolito, Brian Bayo, they were solid this year, right? But they look like more like 3-4s in the rotation to me. Not a whole lot of swing and miss behind Garrett Crochet. And, you know, funny enough, with the Red Sox this past year, they were 21st in whiff percentage with the starting pitching. Garrett Crochet had a 13.7% swinging strike rate. That ranked 6th in Major League Baseball. So it's just crazy that the Red Sox ranked 21st, right? That's how low they were. The next highest was Lucas Giolito at a 9.9%, and the league average was 11%. So just goes to show, I think we know what the Red Sox need in the rotation. A bit more swing and miss. Is that kind of where you're leaning with the Red Sox moving forward?
Yeah, I think you did something pretty interesting there. So like they had the 5th best ERA in all of baseball, 2nd best bullpen ERA. So they were like top 10 in a lot of stats from the pitching standpoint. But if you look at some like the underlying stuff, so there's this really nerdy stat called xFIP, which is like, let's just look at what the pitcher does from a strikeout, walk, and barrel standpoint, basically homers, and like determine what we think he controlled that should have been his results. And they were more like middle of the road on that. They were 12th, so basically league average, as opposed to, again, being really strong on the actual like what happened on the balls in play. Now, a lot of the time people might just say, I don't really care about the underlying stat. Like they had a top 5 ERA, so like good, that checks the box. But from a predictiveness standpoint, like trying to look forward, despite the fact they're going to change some personnel, et cetera, on the actual rotation, we'll see what they end up doing and such. But yeah, I think that's the thing to ID. And you see this a little bit on the hitting side too, where like they got decent results, but their discipline was like kind of fine. You know, like I from doing like a retrospective on this team before this podcast, like they did a lot of things really well. They didn't do a ton that was like exceptionally good, but they got good results, which I think implies good like strategic management, good coaching. They had a good defense, etc. So there's a lot of things here. I think they have like a lot of avenues to go down from like a team improvement standpoint that could really help them push into being like a better team than they were. And listen, they were really good last year. Like I get they were the 3rd best team in that division, but they had like the 6th best run differential in all of baseball. They just happened to be in the AL East, which is always going to be tough. Yeah. Like this was an objectively good season from the Red Sox. It's just the format of the playoffs is really random. You can be an 89-win team and end up having to play a best of 3 set where literally anything can happen. And I don't think the fact they got bounced that early is any indication that they had a bad season. I think they had a really good season. It's the randomness of baseball. There's really no other way to solve it unless they want to expand to like a 5-game set off the top, which I don't think I would hate, but I don't know. That's just kind of my take on the team as a whole from an outsider perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you kind of just saw. I mean, I honestly think that wild card series was kind of a reflection of the good things of the Red Sox this year, but also the bad at the same time. Crochet dominated in game one, but then Brian Bayo couldn't make it out of the third inning in game two. And, Connerly early, we'll talk about him in a second. He flashed some good things in game three, but the defense crept up behind him. The Red Sox defense, great outfield defense this year. Infield, very up and down. Story had a bad September. I'm not sure what happened there. And, just very inconsistent there.
Hey, if you want to take care of yourself, your body, and everything that goes into health, fitness, and nutrition, Superpower provides Kratz what I would call the pro experience for the everyday person.
100%. Super easy. You get your lab test results back, and you can streamline exactly what you're deficient in. You can say, okay, this is what the results told me. I'm going to go ahead and maybe look for that in a supplement, which they provide. I'm going to go ahead and look at that in my daily workouts, which they give so many different ideas of how to make sure your deficiencies become some of your superpowers.
Superpower used to cost $499. Head to superpower.com right now to learn more and lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about them and make sure you mention FT. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
And the big talking point in Red Sox land right now is getting a number two behind Garrett Crochet. Sure. You got a few guys out here. They could go a couple of different ways. It's going to be interesting. I'm very interested because free agency, historically, under the John Henry regime, they haven't usually invested big when it comes to long-term contracts. I'll go a little back in the past. John Lackey, they invested in him, and David Price. Besides that, though, not really a whole lot. But you got some guys like Dylan Cease out there. But the trade market, it seems like that's where maybe that would be the best route for them to go. Point blank, where do you think the Red Sox need to go here to try and get a number two?
Yeah, I mean, you highlighted both the angles. Like, I think the thing we saw at the deadline that's going to be hard for them to swing like a Joe Ryan trade, if that is like the pipe dream, which I'm sure there's a bunch of teams in baseball that would love Joe Ryan in the rotation. Yeah. It's just, we saw there was a clear difference in what teams that had controllable starting pitching were asking versus those that wanted to acquire it were willing to give. Yeah. And in no instance did any of those controllable starting pitchers get moved, which to me implies there's a cavern from a valuation perspective between these organizations. How quickly that's reconciled, I really have no idea. This could be something that lasts for another year or two. We just don't see a lot of good controllable starting pitching move until there's like one GM that IDs it and goes, no, there's a value differential here. We can go over the model that we're using to value this, etc. So that's where I struggle a bit. It's like if you want Joe Ryan, you're probably going to have to give up Peyton Toll. If you want a Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, one of those types, he's probably going to have to be on the table to some extent, unless you could try to swing it with other pieces. But I would imagine the Marlins are looking at Toll and going, yeah, that's the guy we want. So that's the problem, I think, to some extent, is like, I think that may force teams to go into this free agent starting pitching market and take a Dylan Cease at $30 million a year or whatever you want to pay him. High 20s. I'm not entirely sure what he's projected to get, but let's say it's between like 28 and 32 in terms of AAV. That is maybe the safer route to go if you're more comfortable spending than you are trading from prospect depth. It's a great question. It's one that I imagine the Red Sox have to think over this offseason in terms of how they want to approach filling the number two starting pitcher hole, which I do agree is a hole. The obvious options, again, are Joe Ryan if you want to give up the prospects. If not, I think Cease is probably worth the money, and he lines up relatively with what the Red Sox like from like cut fastball standpoint. His shapes actually look a bit like Kyson Witherspoon's in terms of what they drafted in this most recent draft from him. So, I mean, Cease is just kind of like a super-powered version of that. And he didn't really pitch that well this year, which is weird because, like, the entire season I was waiting for him to revert back to being a good pitcher, and he just didn't. So I think he's an easy bounce-back candidate for this coming season. They have some sharp minds there in the Red Sox brass from a pitching standpoint that I really think could turn him back into, like, a low threes ERA pitcher. And that, would be fantastic behind a guy like Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, I keep putting my eyes on Cease, and I keep wondering about him because over the last couple of off seasons, the Red Sox have shown interest in him. They've popped up in the rumor mill. I just wonder, are they going to spend the big bucks? I'm not quite sure. Another trade candidate out there, and you know this guy all too well being in the NL Central, and that's Hunter Green. And before I actually dive into Hunter Green, are you surprised at all that his name has come up this offseason? Or we're not even in the offseason yet, but going into the offseason?
It's a good point. I mean, I do think a lot of these smaller market teams, like the usual way this goes is like you have a good piece, and then when that piece gets within 3 or 2 years of free agency, you know, if you don't think you have greater than a 25% chance to retain him, of which the Reds probably have lower than that, then I get what they're trying to do. You're trying to maximize the potential return and keep yourself competitive. This is just the natural churn of baseball overall. So I am surprised to some extent because I guess I don't even know Green's contract status off the top of my head. When is he a free agent?
He's got he's under like a pretty team friendly deal as an option at the end of it. He has I can pull that up really
I'm curious
quick.
on that.
It's definitely a few more years.
Yeah, he's probably got like 2-3 years of control. But I can't say
runs through 2028 and has a club option for 2029.
Yeah, okay. So I mean, you're gonna have to give up an absolute haul, and this goes back to my point around Joe Ryan, who has 2 years of control. Is like I haven't seen a trade yet where a team has met the price that teams are asking for a guy like this. And perhaps it's just them starting the conversations around this stuff such that you can revisit it, which it seemed like the Red Sox were in conversation on a guy like Joe Ryan. Seems like the Cubs were in conversation on Edward Cabrera and others, you know, Mackenzie Gore, et cetera. Like all these things happen. It's just we're not going to get the reporting until the deal's done and understand the pieces that are flowing in and out. So I'm not surprised. Am I partially? Yeah, I guess, kind of, maybe. But like, I don't think it's going to get done this offseason if it gets done. Partially because I'm convinced that right now you have a giant cavern between the team selling the starting pitching and the team trying to acquire it, and the price is not meeting what the asking price is.
Yeah, it's very interesting with the Reds, and you saw a bit of the Reds this year covering the Cubs, and it's crazy because they have a hitter-friendly park, but their offense this year was so up and down. Part of me wonders if the Red Sox and the Reds actually line up pretty well for a trade, where maybe someone like Jarren Duran or Willie Abreu could be on the table. Maybe you could work some kind of a deal there where the Reds need a bat, Red Sox need a pitcher. Maybe you could do something there. But I will ask you this. If the Red Sox were to make a trade for, say, a Joe Ryan or a Hunter Green, maybe Sandy Alcantara, whoever it may be, they got two guys here in Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early. Both showed some good things this past year. Peyton Tolley had an incredible debut against the Pirates, and then he kind of fell off a little bit. Big fastball from the left side. You could argue the best fastball in all of baseball this past year with the amount of swing and miss he was getting, the stuff on it. It was just lights out. He's got to work on the secondaries a little bit, though, this coming offseason. And then Connolly Early, really flashing a lot of swing and miss this past year. I mean, the stuff plus was off the charts, setting a record in his Red Sox debut, tying the record for strikeouts for a rookie in their debut. I mean, Connolly Early, you just saw him in the wild card round, right? If it wasn't for the defense, Connolly Early probably would have been able to go toe-to-toe with Cam Schlittler. But if I were to ask you this, based off of what those two guys flashed, if you're to kind of, your head's to the fire a little bit, if you had to give up one of those guys, who would you rather hang on to if you were to make a trade for number two? The 2025 baseball season is down to what matters most, lifting the trophy. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the intensity of the championship stage with player props, live in-game betting, and more. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid $300 in bonus bets instantly. This is what October baseball is all about. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Definitely hanging on to Tolley, for sure. I think I have him as the number one pitching prospect in all of baseball. And I think the reason why is The fastball is incredible. It's just, for me, I think there's some intangible element of him expanding his mix so rapidly in a matter of like 3 months in the minors. They kicked in a cutter, which he threw a bunch in the majors. They added a curveball. They flipped into a kick changeup. Like, there's so much that went on to the point where you saw this a little bit like Jonah Tong from the Mets, where he comes up and different kinds of pitchers, very much so, but still like both pretty electric fastballs. And I like the fact that they just gave him exposure. It's just we're seeing this more and more, where some of these guys just don't come up as finished products. It's just that I don't think it's fair to like say Early and Tolley are on the same level from a tiering perspective as prospects. Like, Early is a guy that I was looking at in the minors, and I liked him, but something happened when he got to the majors where he had like this crazy command bump. Like, everything was in zone more. He was dotting everything more. He wasn't missing.
Yeah.
I generally would say that's not going to sustain based on what he'd shown us prior, unless something just happened to occur in the majors that I wasn't able to ID. So I just think like Early's a good pitcher, and it's fun to have him in rotation, but the upside on a guy like Tolley is insane. You know what I mean? Like, that is, he could be Garrett Crochet or Garrett Crochet light in 2 years. And that is why other teams want him. That is why the Twins probably want him for Joe Ryan. Perhaps there's some limitations on what he'll be able to do from like a secondary standpoint, because his hand comes like really square to the ball when he releases it, which is why he has such a good fastball. So he's never going to be able to throw like Garrett Crochet style sweepers and cutters at this crazy velo that have really nice arms, glove side bite and stuff. It's just the natural unraveling of his arm and how he gets to his release point. It's just, he's a little bit of a limitation there. So it's going to be focusing on that kick change in a mixed strategy of like sinker, throw 6 pitches, just mess up timing, etc. So I really like him, though. I just think he has, like, the best way to bet on a pitching prospect is just to ID the best fastball and put it in a good org where they can figure out the rest of the mix. And you have that perfectly lined up with Tolley to the point where he is, I think, the best pitching prospect in baseball.
Yeah, it's tough because I really like Early. I mean, man, he was just crazy good, like when he came up. But with Tolley, though, and it's not even, I hate doing this because it sounds like I'm knocking against Early, and it's not, but I agree. I think Tolley has more of that ceiling, and he has, I guess, I don't even know what you would even say, call this, like the it factor a little bit. He's got that big build where I could see that durability being very good with him. He just has more of that, just that linebacker kind of a frame. He's just different, right? And even though, yes, he did get hit around a little bit once the hitters saw, okay, he doesn't really have any off-speed breaking stuff to really go off of, at least as of right now. So they took advantage of that. But he has that canvas already to get in the lab this offseason and just kind of take off. But with Early, I could say right now, like you said, he was really, dotting the zone here. He has a good floor, in my opinion. So, like, that's where I kind of think back to the Crochet trade last offseason, where you go back to the deadline where Crochet was still with the White Sox. They were asking for guys like Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer. So I wonder, let's say for Joe Ryan, let's just say that, where you could have a potential trade on the table. The Red Sox say, we're not giving up Tolley, but we can work a package around Early. We can maybe do Franklin Arias, Stinson Garcia, the password, Could you see a scenario like that where the Red Sox just say, nope, we're not giving up Tolley, but we'll give you Early, though?
I think that's exactly what is presently happening. Yeah, I think that they're going to other teams and offering guys that are not Tolley, and that's why things haven't gotten done. Because it's not going to swing the trade. Early's not the level that Tolley is. He's not eval'd the same. His mix is already pretty maxed out. His command's good. Like, I think he's some kind of major league pitcher, but like the upside there is not of Tolley, which is why, I think you literally just illustrated probably what those conversations are like. Like, you're literally probably talking as if you're Breslow to the Marlins or to the Twins or any of these other teams for the controllable starting pitching. Nationals for Gore. I'm not entirely sure if that's a conversation they're having, but I imagine it's one that would naturally come up if you're looking for controllable starting pitching. And I think they're going, we'll give you Arias, and we'll give you the password, and we'll give you Early. And they're the individuals now, Taboni from the Red Sox in Washington, if they resume those conversations, whatever. Like, those teams are saying no. Like, this is exactly what I was highlighting in terms of the gap in values, where it doesn't make sense for the team to give up these pieces if they're not getting one of those surefire frontline types. And we saw some peripheral rentals go for interesting pieces like Bieber getting traded for Carl Steven, the Merrill Kelly trade, what the D-backs got back from the Rangers. Some of those trades I thought were aggressive. Now it's going to work out for the Blue Jays, whether they win the World Series or not. I think that, you would take Bieber in the postseason. He's been like a pretty essential part of that team, I would argue, from a how did they get to the World Series standpoint. So you're going to give up a 2024. I think Cal Steven was like a second rounder, but he projects really strong. He's a major league pitcher of some kind. And I think that unfortunately some of those trades maybe hurt the case where if it's like, okay, a rental Merrill Kelly got 3 arms that are all pretty decent and probably some kind of major leaguers for the D-backs. And a couple months of off TJ Bieber got top 30, 20 starting pitching prospect in baseball. So it's like the 3 guys you're sending for a Ryan, a Gore, a Cabrera are just they're not meeting the value of even what the market has said other controllable starting pitchers are worth. So yeah, I think you literally spoke as if you were Craig Breslow in that moment.
I'm trying my best. That's how I try to think. I try to think it.
Yeah.
I've gotten away from what I think so much. It's like, I think the best way to do it is to try and think how they think, right? I got to ask you one more question because you did bring up his name a couple of times. Kyson Witherspoon. On a video I did not too long ago on prospects that could break out in 2026, I went a little aggressive with the Red Sox pick. I actually went with Kyson Witherspoon, and who knows if that's going to happen, but I'm looking at how the Red Sox have been, pushing their college pitchers here as of late, right? I mean, you're seeing it across Major League Baseball. You're seeing these guys get to the Major Leagues so much quicker these days. But could you see someone like Kyson Witherspoon getting to the Major League level this coming year?
Excuse me.
Or do you think the Red Sox or do you think they would hold off?
It's a good question. So I thought the Red Sox draft was kind of fascinating. I covered it for MLB Network, and excuse me, one of the main things that jumped out was in talking to people in the industry, I got pretty bad reports on Phillips. I got pretty bad reports on Einstein, and then Kyson Witherspoon was the first round arm that some people thought would bust. And then the Red Sox took all 3 of them, and I was kind of laughing as they were taking the picks they were making because I was like, man, I had and again, my sourcing isn't everybody in baseball. It's probably a smaller group than I would like it to be, but it's growing, I just thought it was funny that I had Iansen's a guy whose fastball is just not going to work in Major League Baseball, which maybe lines up with the Red Sox strategy. Maybe he's just going to throw 55% slider and be like Matt Whistler 2.0. I think what the Red Sox did was ID'd guys who have good hand feel for spin at velocity, creating good slider shapes, creating good breaking ball shapes, and didn't really care too much about the four seam to the point where I think a lot of these guys can probably move really quick. They could probably velo develop them a little bit. I don't think they're the best movers overall from a biomechanics standpoint. Witherspoon's a little undersized. His arm's a little bit flat in terms of how it comes out through his delivery and such that he's going to be limited. And again, the lateral movement he can create on shapes.
Yeah, a bit of a jerky delivery as well. Makes it work.
It's weird. It's a weird delivery. But that being said, if all 3 of those guys turn into some kind of major league relievers, maybe perhaps leverage with Phillips just throwing 70% of a really good slider with huge extension, weird look, a righty, maybe it works out for them and the draft looks good. But they went with a lot of pitching in this draft, and it's a weird one where I got these bad reports, but I trust their process from the minds they have there. That I was spending time trying to reconcile those 2 sides. Of okay, if everyone told me these guys weren't good and then the Red Sox drafted them, what do the Red Sox see there? Or what do the Red Sox value from a model basis that made them confident these were the picks, at the given spots? Perhaps it was literally just a price at spot standpoint or slot standpoint. Monetary side in baseball with the draft is very different than the NBA just drafting the best dudes 1 through 10,
Everybody on Nesson, we do have to wrap it up right there. We are out of time, but if you want to see the rest of the interview, come on over to YouTube, Monster Territory, and see what else we got to say. But we'll talk to you next time.
It's very different in baseball. So yeah, I would say Witherspoon wouldn't really be my pick to break out. I think a guy like Brandon Clark is kind of interesting in the system.
Yeah.
He's a name that... Yeah, exactly. And again, that's a pretty finicky thing to fix in 1 year. A lot of the times the guys just don't fix it, and that's why they end up as relievers. But Clark's stuff's really good. It's a really fun sinker. He's got a nasty sweeper. He's just a little raw. So that is the hope there in terms of he's in zone more. Perhaps it's a different shape. He's throwing more, whatever. But if they could corral him in zone, I have a little more confidence in him being the guy that pops than, say, a Kyson Witherspoon. But I admit I am fascinated to see how all 3 of these guys look, to retrospectively figure out whether a lot of the sourcing I got on all 3 of them being not great picks was correct, or if it was incorrect and the Red Sox were correct.
A part of me actually wonders this, and maybe this is a bit of a hot take, but I wonder, and I'll ask you this too, since you were so involved with the draft. I think back to the trade that the Red Sox made last offseason for Crochet. They had just drafted Braden Montgomery, and then they included him in the deal. Could you maybe see a scenario where they do the same thing with Witherspoon?
I could. I think it was interesting that we saw in each of the last 2 off seasons, am I correct? A first round top 15 pick.
Cam Smith as well. Yeah, you guys were involved.
Yeah, exactly.
With that.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Trying to reconcile those 2 dates in my brain there.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a growing thing, partially because I think a lot of teams are starting to converge in terms of the numbers they have, where the interesting thing happens when out of draft, if that guy doesn't have a large sample in minor league ball, Cam Smith crushed an A-ball, but his A-ball pitching was worse than what he was seeing in the ACC and stuff. And probably same with Braden Montgomery. He was coming off injury, So I wonder whether those draft guys are appealing because to get a trade done, you need to have a differential of value. A team needs to go, we like this guy more than you are valuing him internally such that we will take him and we think we got a good deal. Both sides think they got a good deal. That's how trades happen. There has to be a differential. Those differentials are more common, I think, in the smaller windows of data you have. So if a team loved Kyson Witherspoon and thought they were going to get him at 24 overall, or let's say the Twins, let's use the example of the Twins. Maybe the Twins loved him. They ended up taking Riley Quick. I think that was in the competitive bounce round. I don't remember if they had a first-round pick. I think they might have. But let's say they thought Merrick Houston, there we go. Let's say they thought Kyson was an option over Merrick Houston where they took Merrick Houston. Maybe then you could go to them and be like, hey, would you take Kyson instead of Tolle? We think Kyson, the Twins would think Kyson's better than Connerly early. And then that could work. So I think that's why perhaps we've seen in each of the last 2 off seasons a college guy, barely in the new organization that he's in, get shipped. It's just a matter of the differential in value. We haven't gotten a lot of data to the point where we can change our evaluation on this guy. So we're going off what we thought in the draft, maybe some of the tidbits we've seen post-draft. But yeah, I wouldn't be stunned if there is another large trade centralized around one of these guys that a team drafted that maybe another org thinks is really good. And perhaps that's in another direction. Maybe it's with the Marlins, or I don't know, just someone loved this Ethan Conrad kid that the Cubs took from Wake Forest that was injured. There's a lot of situations I think where this stuff could work out, partially because of what I'm saying. You just have differences in value the smaller the sample gets.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but I will say this. It's been quite enjoyable to talk about all these arms because it's been a long time since the Red Sox have had all these pitchers, right? I mean, let's go back a few years, 2021. I don't know if you remember these names. Garrett Richards, Martin Perez.
Of course.
They were carrying the Red Sox rotation in the first half, so that just
Garrett Richards is Spin King, man.
Oh, yeah, man, it's crazy.
3,200 RPM breaking balls that just never get figured out, but he was
crazy.
Fun.
But now, it's been a long time since the Red Sox have had this much depth within the organization. It's going to be a fun offseason. But my friend, I want to thank you for joining me here today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk some pitching. Again, let everyone know at home where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Robbie. Always fun to chat. YouTube, Substack, and I'm on regionally here in Chicago. If you happen to be in Chicago listening to a Red Sox podcast, you never know. There might be people out there like that. So I do a lot of work for the Cubs. But yeah, follow me on socials. Always doing good stuff in season.
Do the Red Sox and the Cubs play this year? I'm going blank.
Did they play this year? They did play this year.
Do they play this upcoming year? I'm going blank.
I would assume that we go to you guys, right? Doesn't it happen where it's now every team plays each other, but it's alternating?
Yeah,
I
can't remember. I got to look at the schedule. But if they do,
we go to you guys. I think you guys came here this most recent year.
Yeah, well,
I could be wrong. Maybe my 24 and 25 is blurred together, but
yeah, my brain is a potato, so I don't know. But if they do play, I think they do. Now that I'm thinking about it, we'll have to link up, have you come on the show, give your thoughts about the Cubs.
For sure.
But alrighty, everyone. If you counted the way out, everybody, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you're new. If you're with us via podcast format, give us a 5-star review. But everyone, we'll talk to you next time.